This is from the book The Shamanic Wisdom in the Pyramid Text by Jeremy Naydler. This will probably be part 5, just breaking things down here, giving you viewpoints, giving you key statements out the book. This is coming from page 58 of the section Osiris and Horus. Okay, and this is in the chapter The Mystical versus the Funerary Interpretation. Okay. For Ferriman, okay, now, let's see here. According to the widely accepted current view, the myth of Osiris' death and resurrection and the birth of his son, Horus, was not an initiatory myth, but a myth that underpinned the funerary cult. It was originally a myth that applied solely to the king and his successor in the throne, which means the deceased king as Osiris and the king to come as Heru. While reigning, every king of Egypt was regarded as a living Horus. But when the king died, he became assimilated to Osiris, and his successor then assumed the title of Horus. This view, or doctrine as it has become, is concisely stated by H.W. Fairman in his essay, Kingship Rituals of Egypt. Horus was the son, the avenger, and the successor of Osiris, and so every living king was Horus, and every dead king was Osiris, for Osiris was the good king who had been murdered by his evil brother Seth, but whose throne had eventually been assigned to his son Horus, Seth's nephew, as a result of a lawsuit before the gods themselves, like a divine right to the throne. This can also be shown in the story of Isaac and his two sons, Esau and I forgot the other one's name. Esau tricked his father, who became blind, into giving him the kingship. Esau means hairy. But anyway, for Fairman, the Osiris myth involves 3 main protagonists: Osiris, his brother Seth, who murders him, and his son Horus, who avenges him. We should add to this, of course, Osiris' wife, Isis, whose role is crucial to Osiris' resurrection and the birth of Horus. For Fairman, these mythological figures should be viewed as archetypes that certain key individuals come to embody. In particular, the living king is Horus, the dead king is Osiris. In time, this myth became adopted beyond the narrow sphere of the kingship by increasingly broad social strata within Egyptian society. By the New Kingdom, scribes and petty officials, physicians, priests, and temple chantresses, men and women, all hoped to become assimilated to the god Osiris when they died. This purely funerary interpretation of the Osiris myth in Osirian rites has been expressed and reiterated so many times by so many eminent Egyptologists that it could be described as a cornerstone of the modern Egyptological understanding of ancient Egyptian religion. To challenge it is to seriously risk aligning oneself with cranks, pyramidiates, past lifers, and other heretics, which I guess I am part of this, with whom no respectable academic would want to be associated. At the same time, however, it is comparatively rare to find a reasoned and documented defense of this position. Okay. Page 59. While J.H. Breasted refers to a great many utterances from the pyramid texts, his interpretation of them is always within the framework of the funerary interpretation of the Osiris myth. Within the pyramid texts, however, there are a great many references to the supposedly dead king as Horus. The amount of references to the dead king as Horus in the pyramid texts, however, militates against simply dismissing them as exceptions to the general rule. It is moreover often instructive to examine exactly under what circumstances the dead king is in the Horus role. To take one example which appears in the Pyramid of Unas, the king states, "I am Horus, my father's heir. I have gone and returned." The dead king is not always an Osiris. I'm about to read something on page 67 here, dealing with the ritual and going into the to what is called the hetep meal, which I relate to the Last Supper of the Christ and the 12 apostles before he's traded in by Judas for pieces of silver to be what they call crucified. Page 67. The ritual began with preliminary rites during which food offerings and sacrifices were prepared, and royal insignia such as scepters, staff, and a mace were brought out from the shrine and carried in a procession. After this, there are scenes symbolizing the dismemberment of Osiris, in which grain, which symbolizes Osiris, is trampled by oxen, okay, then loaded onto asses. Asses are a symbol of the ancient god Sut, and taken away. So the dismemberment of Osiris, representing the grain seeds, trampled by the oxen and then loaded onto another animal, the ass, and taken away, represents the dismemberment of Osiris. And Seth doing it, Seth chopping up the pieces of Osiris and sending them off. The ass represents Seth. Okay, the use of asses symbolizes Seth's subordination to Osiris, and this theme is taken further with the raising of the jet column. This is the jet column is in representation of the spinal column. The spinal column is a representation of the Tekhanu, which is called the obelisk today, from DC to Central Park, New York, all the way over there to Vatican City, Rome. They are everywhere, especially within cemeteries. Okay. The raising of the jet column witnessed by the king was signifying the demise of Seth. Offerings are now made to Horus, and a fight, possibly a wrestling match. Okay, remember Jacob wrestled with the so-called man, and the man that they call Peniel, or at least the place that he wrestled with this god or this man. They called it Peniel. This is where Jacob changed his name to Israel, or his name was changed to Israel. And according to the metaphysicians, the metaphysicians and the mythological scholars, the Jacob is in connection to the physical body and representation of the brain. You know what I'm saying? The brain. So we have to understand what's going on with the brain, the adding on of experiences, the memory, what happens with souls when they have to make the transition and then be born again into the world of samsara and not have any memory of their prior existence. And this is all being played out in a show right now on HBO called Westworld. You know what I mean? And we know that Osiris was Lord of the West, the perfect Westerner and such. And Necropolis is in the west of Thebes. That's where they buried the deceased kings. As far as archaeology stands, they have named this place the Valley of the Kings. Okay. So this wrestling match was between the children of Horus. We could say the children of Horus represents the children of Jacob, or the Jacobites or the Israelites, which let you know that they stole the story. And a fight, possibly a wrestling match between the children of Horus and the followers of Seth is enacted, with the victory going to Horus. Okay, this is also representation of the battle, face to face, eye to eye, or the pineal gland against the calcified pineal gland against the uncalcified pineal gland. Okay, there follows an offering procession in which produced from the three spheres of nature, animal, plant, and mineral, are brought to the king and presented to him, each as an eye of Horus. Okay, these eyes of Horus are three spheres of nature: animal, plant, and mineral. These include milk and meat, bread, wine and wood, precious stones and metals. The next event is the coronation of the king, in a ceremony that involves his taking hold of two scepters symbolizing the elemental energy of Set. Okay, a golden shin ring or headband, shin means eternal, and two feathers that are tied to his head, probably represents the double ma'at, as they call ma'ati. Priests sang a chant to the sacred Horus eye, which is now, through the crowning of the king, symbolically restored. Shortly after this, the king eats a hetep meal, i.e., a meal of sacred offerings, as if to empower him for the next phase in the ceremonies. This is the Last Supper. In fact, all of the components of this first half of the ritual may be viewed as serving the single purpose of empowering the king for the more challenging and arduous events that are to come. And I will pause right there. I'll come back with some more information.